1, 2.
Any hit to the head is dangerous. What is really sad about power slap is that it's an undefendable hit in which a person can put as much power as they possibly can into the hit. And so it is a recipe for brain injury and a recipe for disaster. You know, it gets compared to things like boxing or mixed martial arts, but the goal there is to avoid getting hit in the head. And here you can't avoid it. And so a situation is happening that has never really happened in any real sport before, which is somebody can just wind up and hit you with an unprotected hand. You know, just because it's your palm doesn't mean it's not your arm and the bones in your hand striking somebody. And even the whole concept that it comes from the side causes your head to rotate rapidly and makes the brain injury actually worse than if they just punched you in the face. So in the short term, getting hit in the head this hard will cause a traumatic brain injury some percentage of the time. And that was seen in the highlights of the first show, that there were multiple traumatic brain injuries. With a traumatic brain injury, especially with rotational acceleration, you're literally causing physical damage to the brain. You're stretching axons and possibly tearing axons, which are the connections between your neurons and connections between parts of the brain. And those will not heal. So you may recover function, but once you've lost brain tissue, it's gone, and your brain basically has to work around it. And so people are probably suffering symptoms for days, weeks, months, potentially years. But also they're losing their resilience to keep getting hit in the head. And so eventually those hits will cause longer and longer damage and more permanent damage. So that's the acute side. The chronic side is that the more hits to the head you take of force, the more likely you are to develop a disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy. It's a neurodegenerative disease that we first saw in boxers. Now we're seeing in all contact sport athletes. We don't know what the minimum threshold number of hits are. We can say that getting hit in the head 3 to 5 times a week of this type of hit is not a normal thing, and you would assume puts you at risk for this disease, along with other things that come with neurodegeneration from head impacts. Parkinson's is related to this. ALS is related to these hits to the head. So you're really getting set up for your brain to fall apart over time. There's no way to make this safe. And so rather than talking about, you know, should the doctors intervene faster or should there be a net underneath them so they don't fall and hit their head, we should just say, don't do this.